Okay, I'm Johnny, and this is Patrick,
Hello.
otherwise known as Good Cop. And you know what else you'd get from Trumpet of Jubilee Ministries. We want to kind of talk about the role of fathers in child training, especially fathers with infants and toddlers, which sometimes fathers dodge that bullet because they think maybe when they get bigger, you know, then they would want to start in. But in fact, mothers probably need the father's support with little bitty people as much as ever, really. So, what do you think about that?
Yeah, in my earlier life, I ended up staying with different families for one reason or another, and got to observe them being families, being parents. And one of the things that kind of troubled me is that I saw too many dads that acted like they wanted to wait until they could play catch with a kid before they would really do much with them, interact with them, or whatever. And I was already starting to see fruit of that was already too late. Yes, mom has the primary role when they're infants, nursing infants, but it's not long before dad needs to be part of the picture in a real way.
Well, the understanding, not just biblically, but now scientifically, after the fact that we have, is that most of the child's personality and other, you know, cognitive development is kind of completed by age 2. Age 2 is like the magic number. There's some things maybe after that, but boy, all of the synapses in their brain, that has taken place by age 2. So you have like a window. They'll teach you this in, you know, very secular early childhood education stuff, which I've had some exposure to, that there are windows of learning that open themselves in early childhood for children to learn certain kinds of concepts and certain things. And basically, if they don't learn them at that time, they're not really going to learn them. Or if they can be learned after the fact, it's because some kind of a window was opened, even if it wasn't fully expounded or expanded upon. So that means that a lot of the training of a child literally means child or infant or toddler, not a 14-year-old child. So we have dads, if they're holding back and saying, well, I couldn't spank the kid, I might hurt them when they're, you know, little bitty or whatever, or I couldn't, contribute to the training thing a whole lot lest I do something wrong or whatever. So they just want to be kind of hands off, until they can play ball with them or something. Maybe then they're like, oh yeah, let's get involved in this. But the truth is, even from an infant or toddler, certainly 2 years old or younger, the children need to have these learning opportunities and these windows of learning. They need to be completed. And if they're not completed, certain things are not going to be hooked up there like they should be. And so basically, for a father to be a good daddy, he's going to have to engage from birth, well, before birth, really. But anyway, certainly from birth to get the child trained and all those different plateaus, I guess, of training to get them accomplished. So we're not doing this when they're 14, but it's too late.
Yeah, by the time they're 14, if you waited that long, you've proved you're really not a part of their life. Uh-oh, bad cop.
Yeah.
And they're like, who are you? And they'll ignore you. No, start
Sure.
early. You can't really start too early. In fact, yeah. I don't know how to emphasize it enough that dads, you're an important part of this, and moms, you need to let dad be an important part of this. If there's any notion in anybody's mind of, well, you can't be doing that. And that he mentioned about like the spanking part. Well, if you have the right notion of spanking, that you're not trying to, like cripple them, you're just trying to get their attention and give them enough of a, it's smarts enough that they pay attention. Like, this is serious. This means something. That's all you need to accomplish, and you can do that. It's not that hard.
Well, I'm thinking of, we've got a 100 plus pound, I don't even know how many, maybe 150 by now, dog who is a lovely specimen. We ought to bring him in here and let you see him, but lovely specimen of doghood. But I can guarantee you right now, that dude, if he wanted to disobey me, if he wanted to run right over me physically, hand to hand, I wouldn't be able to whip him. I really couldn't. But we've had him since he was about 6 months old, and we brought that dude under charge from, we didn't get him as a baby. He was gonna, but still, he was young enough. So we do that canine thing where we kind of work on his ears a little bit. Now, we pet him by fondling his ears and pulling on him and stretching him and patting his head and all the things you do with the dog. But also, if that dude disobeys, I'll grab his ear and crank it around about a turn and a half. Well, not that far, but I'll crank on his ear a little bit
to get his attention.
Yeah, enough to get. Now, we're not going to scar the dog, but you're gonna have his undivided attention. So now, the other day, he pulled a bad stunt and tried to take food that he was not given off of a lower counter thing in the kitchen. Well, I caught him doing that, and I got a hold of his ear, and I let him know in harsh terms, "Hey, you sit down over here." So I made him sit down away from the kitchen. Good plan, Daddy. Okay, but I cranked on his ear and I scolded him, and he knew good and well that he had pulled a stunt. But you see, I wouldn't want to not train him from a puppy, and then catch a hold of a 2 or 3 year old dog that weighs 150 pounds. And then try to convince him, oh, you don't need to be grabbing food out of the kitchen because that dude might take my arm off, okay? So it works similarly, that we want to train them from the time they're little bitty and where it's instinctive to them. They've already learned it. And incidentally, they're going to forget. If their little butt gets stinged a few times along the way as you smack them to teach them, hey, that's a no-no, they're going to forget all of that. They will never remember an ounce of that. So they're not going to have horrifying memories of proper child training because you're not going to be beating on them when they're 14 if you've trained them when they're 2. Thank you.